Good evening and welcome to the evening service of First United Spiritualist Church. My name is Raphael and I'm your host for tonight. And I'm glad to have Reverend Lesley Prentis with us tonight. And she'll do the opening prayer after our first song, and then I'll introduce her. So let me play the first song by sharing my computer sound, and we'll get started. It's a song by Jimbo Welsh, and it's called Rejoice, and it's sung by my friend Oli Bianco. So I hope you like it. Say the opening prayer.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Would you join me in prayer, always remembering that my prayer is perhaps not quite your prayer, and that as we have gathered together, may you also, in your heart and in your mind, add what I'm missing in my prayer, so that together we are in tune and aligned with one another. Gracious and loving Spirit, God, Creator, Source of all, we know you by many names. We open our hearts and our minds this evening to the love and light that comes to us, that fills us with knowledge and understanding, and helps us to become more aware of the bright lights and divinity in each person, each animal, each plant upon this earth. We ask your blessings upon this earth and all who dwell thereon. We also ask for your understanding that wherever and whenever we are down in the dumps, if we are angry, and if we have great joy, that these are parts of our life and that they come and go. May we learn from them and grow with them. And may those in the spirit realm, loved ones, friends, teachers, the healers, various workers, and strangers gather with us this evening to bring their love, their light, and their comfort to us, to share this time with us. And may they each make themselves known in their own special way. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lesley. So at our church, we value the 7 principles of spiritualism, which are shared across the world. The first one being the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, the communion of spirit, and the ministry of angel. We believe in the continuous existence of the human soul, in personal responsibility, in compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on earth. And finally, that eternal progress is open to every human soul. We have embraced a quote given by Silver Birch and channeled by Maurice Barbno, which says, "Our allegiance is not to a creed, not to a book, but to the great spirit of life and its eternal natural laws." And I'd like to say a big welcome to Lesley. She's been doing services for us for a long time. So she's part of the family. She's always come from the heart and she comes from spirit, always guided, which I really like. And it's my pleasure to have her do our address today. And please join me and send her your love and light. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. And that song was beautiful, and I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I want to say that I didn't know what I was going. I like to do a reading. That's the way I was trained. So we do readings in our church, in the other spiritualist churches locally, and across the world. There is often a reading before the address. So I'm going to combine them both. And I wasn't sure what I was going to read. I was thinking about pulling out a Silver Birch book, and I didn't, because Spirit told me what they wanted me to read. And it's something that you might hear again, because I shared this with someone else. It's short. It is a story that is in the Hasidic tradition, my understanding is. It was told by Elie Wiesel in his novel, The Gates of the Forest, which was published somewhere around 1966. And I know I read it 1967, 13 or 14 or 15, something like that. And this has always stuck with me. And so whenever Spirit draws my attention back to it, they've always got a reason. So here it is. And as I said, it's short. When the great Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov saw misfortune threatening the Jews. It was his custom to go into a certain part of the forest to meditate. There he would light a fire, say a special prayer, and the miracle would be accomplished and the misfortune averted. Later, when his disciple, the celebrated Majid of Mizritz, had occasion for the same reason to intercede with heaven, he would go to the same place in the forest and say, "Master of the universe, listen. I do not know how to light the fire, but I am still able to say the prayer, and again the miracle would be accomplished." Still later, Rabbi Mushleib of Sasov, in order to save his people once more, would go into the forest and say, "I do not know how to light the fire. I do not know the prayer, but I know the place, and this must be sufficient." It was sufficient, and the miracle was accomplished. Then it fell to Rabbi Israel of Rezin to overcome misfortune. Sitting in his armchair, his head in his hands, he spoke to God. "I am unable to light the fire, and I do not know the prayer. I cannot even find the place in the forest. All I can do is tell the story, and this must be sufficient." And it was sufficient. God made man because he loves stories. And Elie Wiesel was a storyteller. He wrote many books. He wrote novels, and he wrote some nonfiction as well. He survived a concentration camp and came out into the world, and he wrote his stories. And I think it's important to recognize that although this is talking about a story in the Hasidic tradition, and it reflects back towards Judaism and those who follow it, this is a story for all of us. Because in our lives, we go through things, and we might have a ritual to do something, just as this is a ritual in this story. So we might have a certain thing that we do before doing something else. We may have a progression of things that we do before we do something. And I know that as we are doing that, we are getting ourselves ready. And we are telling a story about ourselves and about that which we are trying to accomplish. But sometimes we just can't do those things for whatever reason. The information hasn't been handed down to you by others. You haven't learned the prayers. You haven't learned how to light the candles, what order these should be done in. You haven't learned what it is that you're supposed to do. And so you do the best that you can. And that last sentence in the story here, God made man because he loves stories. Elie Wiesel added that. That was his contribution to that story. And I believe that that's true. Stories are something that we share with each other. And many cultures throughout the history of Earth and beyond the history to the prehistory, the oral histories, they are stories that are handed down to teach, to transmit information from one generation to another generation. Sometimes it is to carry through a special person, whether it be a rabbi, a priest, whether it is a shaman, whether it is a revered storyteller who has an apprentice who learns all the stories and then tells them frequently to those around, and thereby sharing information and allowing people to carry on traditions and to not lose their knowledge. And I think that's one of the most important things in this world and on this earth, is that we learn from one another. There are stories that are shared between everybody in a village, whether it is a very small, tiny village tucked away in a forest or in a desert, and they move from place to place. Here, we have great cities. And here, we hear stories. We hear lots of them. And one of the things that we have to do is discern what is right, what sounds truthful, what feels truthful, what is honest. And we have to use our own senses to understand this. And we look for things that help us to move forward in life. We don't have necessarily an easy life on this earth. Some do, but most others have a lot of bumps along the roads that they travel. Their pathway is not simple. Some people just can't settle into one job. They can't settle into one relationship. Others have no roof over their head, no food on their table. There is no table. How do we share the information with one another but by telling stories? And we rely so much now on the news that is told in newspapers, but even more so now, the news on the television, the news on the radios. And we listen to it over and over and over again. And we might be convinced by what we're being told because it's told over and over and over again. And we hear nothing else, nothing to contradict it. But in our lives, if we tell stories and someone else tells stories, and it's done with honesty, it's done with true understanding of what they're saying, then light comes awake in the world. Love becomes more important in the world. And we become the people that we want to be and that we should be if we allow ourselves to grow. Just think of yourself starting out as a seed, as the plants starting out as seeds, and the animals as seeds, the earth itself at some point far back, well before we have any memory, as a seed, and that it is planted, and it is given the nutrients that it needs to be able to grow, to come together as a plant, or perhaps as a meteorite or a star, a sun in the sky. Billions of stars in the sky. And it can be the people on the earth plane. They grow. And they do start as seeds. If you think about it, An egg is fertilized and it grows. And it becomes a person, a human, becomes an animal. It becomes a plant. And the earth, from all the star stuff that was there, the gases compressing, became fragments and added more and more and more to it, and became the planets of our solar system, just as there are planets in many other solar systems throughout the universe and beyond the universe. For we don't know how big it is and how far it goes. And so as we grow, just talk about people right now, just as we grow, born into the world, we might remember things from before time, from our spirit life. For we don't just land on this planet a brand new being. Well, a brand new soul. We are part of the spirit realm. We are part of the God source. We come into this earth and we learn as we grow. And we learn what we're taught. And we can be taught about love. We can be taught about hate. And it is up to the individual to sift through all the things that they're experiencing and find what seems true to them. And it might be that as we are working ourselves through our lives, that we start off in one place and we go on to another. We might start out in love and find ourselves so mired down by the physicality of this earth that we become angry and bitter. We feel downtrodden. And yet, we have to understand that this is a choice that we're making. And we make it every day. Every day we choose to be the best that we can be. Every day we look around us and see what's there. And we can say, that's ugly. Or we can say, it's beautiful. We can say, it has character. We can say, we appreciate that being, that individual on this earth plane. We can choose to share with them the love that we have within. And some people don't recognize that love that they have. It's there. It's part of them. But what happens is when we start to tell stories, we start to tell of our reminiscences, we begin to explain who we are to other people. And other people are doing the same to us, simply because they're telling their story and I'm hearing it and I acknowledge it. I may not understand their pathway. I may not have experienced what they do, but it doesn't matter. We are all part of the universe, part of the source, part of God. And we have choices to make. Now, I don't expect today to be the same as tomorrow, and it certainly wasn't the same as it was yesterday. But I try to do the best that I can. And if it doesn't live up to my expectations, well, I have a chance to try again and to renew it. And I have a chance to try and remember the way things are done. But it actually, if I can't remember the way things are supposed to be done, then I have to do the best that I can with it. And as it came in the story, through generations, it wasn't one rabbi after another that couldn't remember. It was somebody who told the story, and it got told over and over and over again. And changes got made. Something got left out. Perhaps something got added. And it came down, and it kept changing until it came to the point when all of the ritual, all of the clutter is gone. And all that is left is to tell the story. Now, in the reading, it talked about things that were misfortune occurring. But we tell stories about misfortune, and we tell stories about things that puzzle us and perplex us. We tell stories about things that we've seen. We tell stories about ourselves and about others. And in telling those stories, we are not confined to misfortune, although there is so much in the world. And particularly now, you look around and you don't see a lot of happy stories. You don't see a lot of joyful stories. And we're not hearing the joyful stories, the birth of a baby, an engagement, a wedding. these things we're not hearing as much about because we're not gathering together in places. And so those stories become more important that we share them. And whether it's done by telephone, on the internet, whether it's done by writing a letter and sending it off to someone, that's how they used to do it. That's how they used to do it. My mother came from England, and she would write letters back to her mom and back to her dad and to her sisters. And I know that over the years they became less and less. And yet, writing the letters gave way to maybe sending a card now and then, phoning now and then, even though it was really expensive at one point in her life. She would send letters, cards, phone. She never actually got to the point where she could communicate online because the things weren't the same that, 16 years ago or so, where you could easily get on and communicate to somebody. But she did the best that she could, and a lot of people have done that. And when we share our stories with family and with friends, we can uplift everybody. And if we have really hurtful stories or stories that tell of things that people have done that were not so good, unless they have injured somebody so severely that they need to be, either sometimes jailed, if they've killed somebody, they need to be set away from people until they can learn to be generous and kind. And I have found over the years that I know that within each and every being, there is a divine spark that tells us that God is in everyone. And that beauty and joy may be layered down so much that it can't be seen within a person. Maybe the odd spark in there. But in telling stories and sharing stories, we can light that spark. We can grow and learn through that spark. And we can become the best that we can be. And we can recognize in others the best that they are. And we understand, we know that our growth is only stunted by ourselves if we choose not to allow truth and light into your lives. However you perceive it, it's your choice. It's your life. But we can each share and tell one another our stories. And I hope that you tell a story, not about what I've said tonight, but a story that involves you, involves how you feel, how you see things, and what you see coming in the future. Not the sad stuff, not the fear. Although if you've got fear, then you need to tell that. It's part of your story and let it out. Because when we talk about things between ourselves, when we listen and learn from one another, we often can set aside fear and hatred and embrace love and understanding. And we can walk together, not sharing the exact same pathway, but we can walk together, learning and growing. I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lesley. What an interesting topic. It's so true. Stories everywhere, and it's healing. I'm going to do a little bit of announcement for February. Coming Tuesday, we have healing service with Neville Kim Singh. He always does the last Tuesday of the month 7:30 p.m. and followed by the Development Circle with Alan Holmes, 8:30 p.m. On Thursday, a Divine Love Prayer Circle with myself and Maureen Cardoso, and two events, monthly events that I encourage you to attend. Friday night, Greetings from Spirit with Ricky Avitan via Zoom at 7:30 p.m. And on the 27th, very well attended virtual psychic fair from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you haven't tried it, you connect, somebody will put you in a breakout room at the appointed time of your booking. And the way to book is to send an email to fusc@show.ca. Don't transfer any money yet. They'll come back to you, you'll do a booking, and then they'll tell you how to send the transfer. And then at the appointed time, you have your reading, and it works really well. And then on the final day of the month, it's a Sunday. So it will be the fifth Sunday, which is, no, actually it's the fourth Sunday. We have British medium Jackie Wright at 11. She's very well attended. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's a privilege to have her at the church. And then in the evening at 7:30 p.m., we have a send-in evening service with Ricky Avitan. So I hope to see you at one of our events. Thank you. It's now time for our group meditation, and followed by our demonstration of mediumship with Lesley. So I'll be doing the group meditation. So if you would like to join me in prayer, and I invite you to get comfortable, maybe turn on the light a little bit if you feel that there's too much light, and just relax. Let your body sink into your seat. Let go of whatever you carried this week, from work, from life. Let it go. And then consider the story you want to contemplate for yourself for this year, the coming months, and for the rest of your life. What is the intention? I hope, I know, and most of us want to serve, be a light, help others, maybe, find their purpose, live their purpose. And to hold that in your heart as I call spirit or spirit guardians, a spirit that work with us at the church, celestial angels, to join us, asking them to create a safe and sacred place as we join together. And we dedicate our energy, our intention tonight to healing. And we may use as healing agents. Dear Creator, beloved God, we long for your presence. We ask for your love to descend upon our soul, soothing it, filling it, transforming it in your love. And with our sincere longing we're opening up to your healing. We may be used not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of others. As we're sending now your healing energies as physical vessels, of your divine love and healing. Let us connect to your love and contemplate these energies that are now working through us. Surrendering, letting go, and letting God. We slowly come back. We are very grateful, dear God, for this opportunity to commune and to heal. We love you dearly, and we thank you, dear God. Amen. All right. So now I'll usually have a song, but if you're okay, we're gonna go into the demonstration, and I'll give you as much time as you need, Lesley. I can't hear you.
I turned off my mute button on my headset. Where am I? Yeah, you should be able to hear me okay now. Thank you. Let me see. Where am I going? I can see everybody, so I can go directly. David, can I come to you, please? Could you unmute yourself?
Yes, you may, Lesley.
Thank you. Thank you. I've met you before. I don't actually remember anything about you, but that's okay, because I don't need to. Spirit know what they want to say. I know that I have Father here, and I know that it's your father. You look like him. Okay. Very much. You look like him very much. So that at times, if you looked at a photograph of yourself and a photograph of him at approximately the same age, you wouldn't, if you didn't know, you wouldn't be able to tell. If they were both like black and white, you wouldn't be able to tell who was father, who was son. And there was this point in your life when you became father.
Yes.
There, the relationship became you as father. And what he's saying to you right now is he's saying thank you, because you are much gentler than I ever would have been. Okay. He says, well, I won't use the language that he's using, because he had quite colorful language, and I don't want to put that on the air. He is a man who he worked hard and he played harder. He's putting it that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he says, I didn't do what I should have done for family and friends. And he said, and the friends that I had, that I paid attention to, were not true friends. Okay. He said, and yet I went back to them again and again. Okay. He says, I hadn't learned how to take responsibility. And he says, I am ever so grateful that we continue to learn and grow, which he didn't understand. He didn't believe. And he thought any kind of anything religious or spiritual was just bunkum, because he was going in the ground and that would be it.
That's right.
It's over. And it took him quite a while to come out of it, to decide he recognized that he was still alive. You know, he was awake and aware, but it's sort of like, I don't know what's happening here. And so he's saying to you that he is truly glad that you have put yourself in a much better position than he put himself in. Okay. Now, I know that as he's here, he's saying, I never expressed how proud I was of you and of how you worked so hard to get where you've gotten to, is what he's saying. He says he watches with interest as you are doing your healing prayers, because he wouldn't have understood that at all. And so he watches with interest, because as far as he was concerned, he says, that's their problem, not mine. And although he could be quite generous at times, it's usually outside of the family, is what he said. I was generous outside of the family, and I wasted my money. I should have spent it in a better way, taking care of the people that I did love, but I didn't know how to say, I love you. And I didn't know how to share that. He says, it was easy with babies. You just held them, you know, and you talked at them. And then, you know, that was all you did. And you handed them off to somebody else to change their diapers, is what he's saying. That was not something that he would do. He's just wanting you to know that he is watching you, because although he's learned a great deal since he's gone over, he says, I learned a great deal from you about what life was supposed to be. Okay. And he says, even when you are, he's saying castigating yourself. Even when you're doing that, which you do, he says, you shouldn't be, because you are one of the most warm-hearted people he's ever met. And he says, coming back and looking at you now was a revelation to him, and an understanding of what he missed out on the earth plane. And he's wanting to start that relationship with you now.
Okay.
Okay. And he says, yes, I've been around your place. Yes, I move things if I can.
Yeah.
They have to be very light, he says. It's very hard to do. But he says they have to be very light. And he says, sometimes it's just like your shirt, the edge of your shirt moving.
Okay.
You know, just like it suddenly it doesn't feel like it did a moment before. And that's him coming around and trying to say hello to you and how are you? Okay. He says, if you send out a thought to him, he will try and answer it so that you receive an answer. Okay. He says he understands that it's difficult, but he's willing to work at it. He's willing to work at it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he wants to say to you, I love you. I love you. Okay.
I love you too.
Yeah, he heard that and he said, thank you, and thank you. And for him, he's just saying to me, for him, things came in threes. Okay? 3 was an important number for him. And he says, it's not your important number. He's telling me that 4 is your important number.
Okay.
I don't know what you know, that's what he says. Now, I don't know whether you recognize that, but.
I'll have to think about it.
Okay. He said, well, he says you do things in 4s.
Oh.
So he was listening to the story at the beginning. He says, you know, they did it. You didn't have they did all the things there were, and then the next person couldn't remember didn't know how to do one of them. And the next person didn't know how to do 2 of them. And the last person didn't know how to do any of them. And it's 4s to get there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I did feel a breeze come on the side of my head here.
Just as I was saying that.
In the beginning.
Just after.
When I gave the prayer that at the beginning of the service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he didn't tell me when I just know that he's there. I know that he's there with you right now. Okay. I'm just going to leave that with you with his love and his blessings. Oh, and he's just telling me, and yes, I love flowers. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Lesley. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Hi, Elaine. May I come to you, please?
Hello.
No?
Hello.
Oh, hello. I thought you said no, and I was going to say, I haven't had anybody say no for a long time, but it's okay to say no as well. But hello to you. And I have somebody who's saying here, and I don't know who it is at the moment. I'm hearing the voice. I can't even tell if it's male or female at the moment, but they're saying she always said hello like that. She always said hello. She throws herself into hellos. You also threw yourself into hugs around legs when you were little, like you would just come and around legs. You would also hide behind people and hold on to their legs. It's a lady that's here is telling me. And she says, at times you would try and hide under skirts when you were little. She said you were way little, you know, maybe 2.5 when you did that. I'm feeling a mothering influence with this lady, and I'm not sure whether this is mother or her mother. Okay, but I know that this lady was a very strong personality, someone who could stand up for herself if she needed to, but would often just stand back and let whoever was being a nuisance or a bully just talk themselves out of whatever. Okay. I know that she, you know, if she needed to, she said, if I really wanted to, I could have laid him flat on the floor, is what she said. Okay. And I feel this is as an adult, and this is as you were growing up. There was a lot of good times, but there were some really not so good times. And she's talking about those, and it was in relation to a person. And she's saying, I could have knocked him flat on the floor if I'd wanted to. But she chose the peaceful way because that was the best way to demonstrate that peace is better than war to family. And she says, you could have a real temper and you could have temper tantrums even now if you wanted to, but you've chosen to walk a more blessed, as she's putting it, pathway. Okay. She says, you take it, you take in the what's there, you look at it, you go through it, and you manage to just make it diminish. And then you can just tuck it away in a drawer somewhere and just move on from it. And she says she's very pleased that you don't hold grudges. Okay. Because if you did, she said you would be weighed down with them. And not just a little bit. She said by now you probably wouldn't be moving. Okay. I'm hoping that you recognize this in yourself, that you are a person who does take the time to move on from whatever is, go through whatever it is and move on from it, because you don't want to waste your life on things that bring you down. Okay.
That's true.
And she says you are such a happy person. And yes, you have your moments of being down, but you just look at it and go, no, I don't want to be here. And you find something that moves you upwards again. And she says, you're never, this is one of the few times you sit still, because you're always doing something. She says, you're always doing something with your hands. If it's not, and I feel like there's or there has been, is what she's saying, making things, crafting, knitting, not crocheting, she says knitting. And she says, you've tried your hand at weaving, you've tried your hand at painting and drawing. And she says you do very well at that. You may not think so, but as far as she's concerned, you have a really artistic spirit, and it shows up in whatever you're doing. Okay. And she's appreciating that. Now, I know that this lady usually wore a neck, it was way up here, and that she would wear a collar on it that was separate. Or it would be attached so that it could come off, because you didn't wash it with the garment. Okay. I actually want to go to grandmother with this lady. I want to go to grandmother. And she's telling me that you had a real connection, you and grandma. And that she liked to give you treats, but she didn't give you too many, because a lot of treats aren't good for people. Now, as I'm feeling her, now I'm very heavy. As I'm feeling her, she was quite slight. Okay. I know that as she got older, she put on some weight, but she was always active, always doing things right until the end of her life, when she slowed down. And there was maybe a year when she got really slow and slower and slower, and suddenly she was just gone. And a lot of people didn't get a chance to say goodbye, including you, is what she's saying. And she says, I'm not going to say goodbye now, because we can still talk to one another. And she said talking was a really important part. And she says, I used to listen to your stories when you were a child, and then when you were a little bit older, and then you listened to my stories. Okay. And she says this was very important for her. Okay. Because I know that at the end of her life, she felt neglected. Like she'd been shut away almost in a room, and people didn't go see her. Now, that's not quite the reality of it. I know that, but that's how she felt. Okay. But I know she's telling me that everybody actually did their best for her, but it was like she couldn't be consoled. She knew she was approaching the end of her life, and she just didn't feel like she was ready to go. Okay. Now, she's also talking about, oh Lord, it came up. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you. I'm questioning it because it came up last night. It came up last night for me, or yesterday when I was doing a reading. Yesterday, Friday, when I was doing a reading, and it's been coming up a lot in that I went into an old box and I found a bracelet that I haven't worn since I was small because it doesn't fit me. It doesn't fit my wrist. As I grew out of it. And it is a little bracelet that I know that they sold at when there were, I don't know quite where they got it from, but I know they were sold when I was young. So we're looking at, I probably got it when I was about 4 or so something like 58 in those years. And it has little pearls on links in between, little just wire loops in between. And there is one larger bead, only it's not the same kind of bead. It's like a little capsule, a little circle of it's clear, and it has a wire rim around it, and it has a mustard seed in it. And she's talking about the mustard seed was an important story, and that you had read it. There's something, and I cannot remember what it says in the Bible about it. I cannot remember, and I haven't looked it up. And I haven't Googled it to see what it is, but I remember it came in around from somebody who was very much into religion. And so I know that as this was happening, she's saying, tell her to read the story of the mustard seed. And she's picking that up from me because I've recently come across the bracelet, and it's recent in my mind because somebody mentioned it again. Spirit mentioned it to talk to somebody I was doing a reading for on Friday. And I know that I was looking at that bracelet just before we started. I picked it up and was going around, and she says, and you like to feel things like this, like beads. You will go through beads and things will turn around. She says you also turn around your rings on your hand. You spend a lot of time doing that. It's an absent-minded habit you have.
Mm-hmm.
But also with every turn, it's like every turn you're saying a prayer. Okay, I hope you recognize that. Yeah, okay, because every turn you're saying, you're thinking of something, and with it you're thinking and sending out a prayer. Okay, and she says that's really important. And I feel that she also would turn her rings until the time she had to take them off because her knuckles were so swollen with arthritis. I know she had swollen knuckles from arthritis on the right hand. Okay, and the rings didn't feel right on her other hand, so she stopped wearing them. Okay, she wants to bring you, please, a little, it's a planted basket, so it's got soil in it, and it's got the primula in it, the little tiny primulas. And these are the kind of things that she cherished, is if somebody brought her a little basket or even just a pot with a flower in it, she would love that. And it was really important. And she said, you have always put out little pots of flowers in memory of people and dedicated them to somebody. And when they're gone for the season, the next season, you replace them. If they come back up, fine, but if not, you get a new one and put it there. Okay, she's talking about your mother loving yellow. Okay, that was the color that she wanted because it was so bright. And she wasn't allowed to have a lot. She's telling me, your mother was not allowed to have a lot of yellow in the house. Somebody didn't like it. But she would have a little bit of yellow, and that was tolerated. Okay. She's also talking, please, about your mother having like heart failure happening at the end of her life, and her lungs. Okay. She's not telling me there was some other condition going on, and she's not telling me what it was, but it contributed to the heart failure and the filling of the fluid in the lungs as well. Okay. And she said, you know, you looked after her so well. You looked after her so well. Okay. Even though you didn't always get along, she's saying. And what she wants to say is, she's doing the talking today, she says. So I'm giving you my love. I'm giving you love from your mother as well. And she's talking about, please take care as you are moving about, because she's saying there's something underfoot somewhere. Okay. And so you have to be careful. You move around it carefully so that you don't trip, because it's got like legs. I don't know whether she's talking about an animal or a footstool. Okay. But she says it is important that you take the time for yourself. And she says that's not so hard these days for you to do, because often you are alone and there's no one else there, and it's difficult. But she says to you, remember that you're never alone, that we are there with you. Okay. And we always will be. Okay.
Okay.
Can I leave that with you? They're just so beautiful. They're so beautiful.
Yes, thank you, Lesley.
Okay, thank you. Denise, can I come to you, please? I have to have a yes or a no. You can type it in chat. You can turn on your mic. Okay. I'm not getting an answer there, so I'm going to move on to Liz, if I may. Denise may have had to leave right now, or may not want a message, which is just fine. Hi, Liz. I know Liz. Can I give you a message, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I've got, now I know just from discussions going around that your aunt is in spirit. Okay. And what she's saying is, listen to her little voice. She's just got such a little voice. And yet when she was young, you'd have thought she'd yell the whole neighborhood down, because you were very loud when you were little. Okay. And they kept going, shh, don't be so loud. And what she's saying to you is that you took it too much to heart about not being loud. And you've become the opposite. You're very quiet. But she says you spend a lot of time being contemplative. And I know that about you. I know that you spend time with spirit, trying to work with spirit. And she says, that's all very well, but you need to do the other things in your life as well. You need to try your hand at some different things, is what she's saying. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, no, it could be. It either is yes or no. But she's okay. I can just continue quickly here. I know that she is coming to you with a lot of love and a lot of appreciation, because she says you gave her a lot of attention, and you spoke to her when a lot of other people wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I know that as she's here, she is saying to you, I have learned so much since I've been here. And it was very interesting to meet all of the relatives, all of the people whom I've seen in pictures, because they came and greeted me when I went across. They knew how difficult it was for me to cross because I didn't want to, and I was frightened, and I held on very tightly to the earth and to the people around me. And she's saying that she's telling me that you said it was okay to go. You didn't understand what you were saying to her at the time, but you said it's okay. It's okay. And that enabled her to go. Okay. It enabled her to let go. And everybody left and she went. She was not being held back anymore. Okay. Does that make sense to you? That she left when people left, and she was more or less, I think there was one person, two people around, but most of them had gone, and she was able to, in that space, let go. And in that time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. She said, always remember that, Liz, that when somebody is having difficulties, just to remember to say to them, it's okay. Even if you don't say it's okay to let go, it's okay to move on. Just if you say it's okay, it helps. Because there are so many threads holding someone back when they're about to cross. Just as there were so many threads hanging on to you when you came to Canada. From the physical plane, there were so many people saying, no, don't go. You shouldn't go. That's how she felt, with people trying to hold on to her. Okay? Because nobody wants to see a loved one pass. And yet she was in pain, and she was suffering, although she tried not to let people know. And she said, it was the right time for me to go. There is a right time for all of us when it's time for us to go. And it doesn't matter what other people say. That was the time for us to go. And it's time for me. She says, but I'm back. I've learned a lot. I'm around you. You feel me around you. She says, I know you feel me. Okay? She says, she knows that you feel when she plays with your hair. She used to play with your hair when you were a child, and she's doing that now. And she says, you recognize it. And she just wants you to know that she's here with you and that she loves you. Okay? Because she says she knows that you've been feeling very alone. Even though you have friends and you're online, she says she knows it's difficult. She wants you to know I'm here. Okay? Can I leave that with you, with her love and her blessings? And there's a little silver ring that was hers. And I don't know whether you actually got it or not, but there was a little silver ring. Okay. And if you don't have it, then she's going to give it to you symbolically. Okay. And it's a pinky ring. It's just a little tiny thing. And she says, I'm giving it to you. And if it's symbolic, that's fine. And she said, like the other lady who turns her rings, you can turn that one. Okay? I'm going to leave that with you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll finish there.
Thank you so
Raphael,
much,
thank
Leslie. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I would like to ask Dave to do the closing, to do the honors, if he's okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure, Raphael.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We thank you, dear Father, for the messages, the lovely messages that we received, the blessings that we received from Spirit, the guidance, the love, and the continued love and guidance that we'll be experiencing when we go on from here. We thank you for everyone who came, for their energies, for their participation, and may you all go in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.